Robert Johnson was an American blues musician that was born in 1911 and died in 1938. He was the very first member of the 27 Club, and he is influential across rock and roll, even rap today, hip hop, blues, of course, any music that has come out of the United States. He was at the very beginning of it all. He has always had a bad life, and that's what got him into the blues. It wasn't very long, and the early parts, what really got him, he never got to meet his father, a man named Noah. That is all they really know. His mother was moved by her husband at the time after they had 6 or 7 kids, and Robert was only 2 or 3, from Mississippi to Memphis because they were ran out of town by racist white people, made him sell his land, and he had to move over to Memphis, where he would live until he was at 8 or 9. Then he had to move again because his mother got remarried, and that's where he spent most of his childhood learning how to play guitar, learning the basics of reading, writing at an all black school where he grew up. He fell in love. He found his first wife when he was about 19 years old. She unfortunately passed while having his first child. So he thought after this it was because of his secular music playing. He thought it was because of him putting hoodoo and a little bit of the devil into his music. He took complete blame and went about his life until 2 years later, where he found another woman that he fell in love with, and the same exact thing happened. She died giving birth to his son. This is where he decided to go out on the road, be a nomad, play the blues, and what he did for the rest of his short life, the next 8 years or so. Right after his second wife had passed, he went out and he was gone for 6 to 8 months. Nobody knew where he was. No one could find him. No one knew what he did. But he came back, and his already good music playing became mythical. He was so good that people started the rumor that he went out to the crossroads, met the devil, and he sold his soul for his guitar and singing skills. This is where it comes from. This is the whole mythos behind what he does. Is he was so good that it could not be anything but preternatural. He also is so important to music nowadays because of how many people he influenced with his music. He influenced bands such as Cream, Led Zeppelin. I mean, Eric Clapton had glowing recommendations, says he is one of the best guitarists to ever live. And Eric Clapton taught Jimi Hendrix. They were both in the same category. They both speak so highly of him. All of his songs have been covered pretty much by other bands. Band Cream, with Eric Clapton as its front man, covered the song The Crossroads, which is about him meeting the devil. There's also Traveling Riverside Blues that Led Zeppelin covered. They have Love in Vain by the Rolling Stones, Me and the Devil by the Doors, and Dust to My Broom by Ike and Tina Turner. This is the amount of reach he has. This is the amount of people that think he was that famous that he needed to have all these covers decades after he had passed. He also had Eric Clapton and made a whole entire album called Me and Mr. Rob Johnson that is just all covers of all of the Robert Johnson songs that he enjoyed. And if Eric Clapton makes a whole album about you, you know you're very influential. He was that good that people, when they came to watch him, when he was out playing guitar, he would shut the whole entire room down. He'd play one song and people would just be quiet because that's not what they expected. They never saw this coming. He was just insanely good. And that's why all these famous artists think that he should be talked about more. He's big in the musical world, but people that don't know music have never heard his name. He is not as ubiquitous as everybody else. He is the most influential American musician of all time and in our modern era, is what I would have to argue. He was, of course, the very first member of the 27 Club, which is a member of people who died and met their demise at 27 years old. It is said that he was murdered by a jealous lover at 27, but no one can actually confirm or deny this because it was back in 1938, the year after the Great Depression started. He is joined in the 27 Club by Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain. We got Amy Winehouse, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix. These are all very famous people that met their demise at 27 years old. And Robert Johnson was the very first back in 1938. He is well known across the musical world, but it needs to be more ubiquitous for the people that dislike music to know that this one man who we have very few recordings of, that we have scratchy recordings because it was 1930s, but it is said that without him, there'd be no rock and roll, and without rock and roll, wouldn't be many American music that the whole world could look up to. So thank you to Robert Johnson. I think he needs more credit.